And the last question, not the last, but the last one that I include in this presentation is what style to use. Some visualizations need to be minimalistic, straight to the point, represent the data as clearly as possible, as directly as possible. That's the style that I usually favor myself. But that doesn't mean that all visualizations need to be minimalistic. Again, it depends a lot on what the purpose of the visualization is. So let me illustrate this with an example. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I myself design graphics that we could consider standard. These are not visualizations that I created. These are visualizations by the New York Times, but this is the style that I usually use. Even the color palette itself is a color palette that I sometimes use myself. These are very similar to graphics that I design myself on a regular basis. Just because I'm a journalist, I want to communicate clearly. I stick to graphic forms that are traditional, color palettes that have been tested, and a style that is just bare, straight to the data, just show me the data. But that doesn't mean that this style is appropriate in every single case. Let me talk to you about Jaime Serra. Jaime is a visualization designer, like I am, from Spain, like I am. But Jaime has a side career as an artist, as a data artist. Right? He's perfectly capable of designing graphics such as this one. But Jaime, he has been graphics director at several newspapers. Jaime also does art exhibits. He creates art based on data. One day, he decided that he wanted to visualize how much coffee he drinks throughout a year. Now, if I need to do that, if I wanted to do that, the way that I would do it would be to get my coffee mug, the mug that I use to drink coffee every day, draw some sort of a scale, and then whenever I pour coffee in the coffee mug, measure how much coffee I'm drinking. And then I will record the number. This is the number of milliliters that I'm drinking today. I will record that in a spreadsheet. And then at the end of the year, I will design some sort of line chart to show how much coffee I'm drinking every single day to see whether there are variations. But Jaime decided to do something completely different. The way that he did it was that he got 12 large pieces of paper, right? 12 pieces of paper. He folded each one of those pieces of paper horizontally and vertically in order to subdivide those papers into quadrants, like if they were pages of a calendar. That's the reason we had 12, one per month. And then when he was going to drink coffee every day, what he did was to try to spill a little bit of coffee on the sides of the coffee cup or the coffee mug in a way that the coffee accumulated at the bottom of the mug. And then he positioned the coffee mug on the corresponding quadrant, on the quadrant that corresponded to that particular day, to leave a coffee stain on the paper. And then what you get at the end is a physical visualization of coffee drinking patterns that is based on coffee stains, right, of the mug, right? Now, this is amazing. This is incredible. It's an incredible piece of work. Obviously, it is not, let's say, analytically precise or very accurate. If we wanted accuracy, a line chart would be better if we want to analyze the data. But it has so much aesthetic power. It captures your attention so much. And you can even see some patterns in the data. You can see when Jaime was drinking tons of coffee in this month, when he was not drinking coffee at all in December, probably on vacation, right? Some days of the week when he was not drinking coffee at all, probably during the weekend, I don't know. So you can sort of like spot the differences still. But the purpose of this graphic is not to be analytical. The purpose of this graphic is to be more, so to speak, emotionally expressive. So you may be thinking right now, when to use a visualization like this and when to use visualizations like that. And the answer is always, it depends on what we want to achieve. The way that I usually explain it is creating a fictional example. Let's suppose that I work for a company and that this company wants to publish a book or an internal report, right? A physical internal report, like a book, of coffee drinking patterns in the company. They decide to measure how much coffee their employees are drinking, right? And they collect the data, they analyze the data, they visualize the data. What you put inside the report, inside of the book? Well, I would put graphics that are similar to these ones. Traditional graphics, maps, charts, graphs, line charts, and so on and so forth, to inform the reader so people can get a very clear, very accurate understanding of the data. But what would I put on the cover of the book? or on the opening pages of every section of the book. I would put visualizations such as these ones, because this visualization really, really captures people's imagination. It makes you smile. It's so creative, so unique, so fully customized to the purpose of the purpose of that particular book that I'm describing, that is great to open up the project. So aesthetic considerations are also quite important in data visualization in terms of choosing the style of a data visualization. I would like to close the presentation today very briefly showing one of the latest projects that I have been involved in, that was originally published in Brazil, and later it was picked up by the Washington Post here in the United States. Now, this project is an example of unique data visualization that is not traditional. That is not traditional. The project is titled At the Epicenter. And the way that it works is that when you open the project, you can input any address in the United States, or in the original in Brazil, you could input any address in Brazil. And then what happens is that the visualization will tell you, well, let's put that address over here. It tells you, well, this is the address that you have put in there, right? You are here. Now, let's suppose, just for the sake of argument, that all people who died of coronavirus in the United States were your neighbors, right? Instead of being scattered all over the country, let's suppose that all those deaths concentrated around you. How big the circle around you would be, to give you an impression of the size of the catastrophe. So it begins by saying, the first person who died of COVID-19 in the United States was someone who lived in Seattle, but let's suppose that is your neighbor, that white dot that you have in there, right? These are streets, as you can see. This is where I am. Then 1 week later, there were almost 100 deaths, right? This was all in March of last year. So this is what 93 people look like around you. That's how big the circle will be around you if nearly 100 people had died around you of COVID-19. And then 1 month later, nearly 13,000 people had died of COVID-19 in the United States. This is how big the circle will be around you. And now, I don't know whether they have updated the data of this project. No, they have not updated the data yet, because the data right now is going up to more than 400,000 deaths already. But when it was published, it was 220,000. Right? If all COVID-19 deaths in the United States had happened around you, the circle around you will be 5 kilometers in radius around you. Now, the responses to this visualization project were astounding. I mean, people who read this graphic, as simple as the concept is, they were surprised, they were shocked. And the most common reaction in social media, because by the way, the project can be shared in social media, you can create your own map and then go to share my map, save the image, and then publish it in social media. The most common types of responses is, I never envisioned the real size of this tragedy. Because if I tell you that 300,000 people have died, that's an abstract number. It is very hard to understand how big that number really is. But when we put that number on a human scale, particularly if we compare that human scale and we put it around you, comparing it to something that you know really well, for instance, the size of your neighborhood, suddenly that number becomes more physical. That number becomes, what I like to say, warmer. I like to talk about cold numbers and warm numbers, or cold visualization and warm visualization. Cold visualization is the traditional visualizations that depict the data. Those are still necessary. Number of deaths, number of cases, we need those types of visualizations. But we also know that normal human beings, we usually have a hard time understanding numbers, particularly big numbers that have a huge magnitude. Therefore, sometimes it is appropriate to try to put those numbers on a human scale in a way that they become closer to the reader, closer to you, that look warmer. Things that are closer are also things that are warmer to us, right? This is the sense in which I use the term warmer. So I would also encourage you, besides following sort of like the reasoning processes that I have tried to outline so far in this talk, I would encourage you to try to think for yourselves in all these terms, but also to always try to think, how can I make my visualization not only more understandable, but also more approachable and more attractive to my readers? Because the purpose of visualization, and as Ben Schneiderman, a famous writer about visualization, used to say, The purpose of visualization is insight. It is not pictures, it's to provide insight. I translate that phrase into the purpose of visualization is to help people make sense of things, make sense of stuff. The purpose of visualization is not the visualization per se. It is to help people understand something, to expand their horizons, their mental horizons. I think that that is the call that we can all follow. I think that that is sort of like, I would say, the ethical mandate that we all have as visualization designers to help other people, to help ourselves first, but also other people understand the world that surrounds us a little bit better. Anyway, I'm going to close the presentation here today. But as I promised, at the end of the presentation, you will be able to read this on your own. I have included several slides that contain links to more readings about visualization. These are all free resources. There's a couple of Dropbox folders that I put together with extra materials. A few readings about visualizing uncertainty, which is something that I didn't discuss in the presentation, but I believe that is one of the next frontiers in the world of visualization, how to convey to people a sense of uncertainty, a sense of the fact that the numbers that we commonly see in news media are not as precise as we would like them to be. So how we convey that idea to people. And then several recommendations of books that I like or that I love or that I believe can be useful for anybody who's taking the first steps in the world of data visualization. First of all, books that are available for free online, such as Fundamentals of Data Visualization by Klaus Wilke, which is a fantastic introduction to data visualization. R for Data Science, if you're interested in coding, the R programming language is really good. Books that talk about the fundamentals of data visualization, such as Storytelling with Data, and many others. Books that talk about visualization more from a scientific perspective, but even if you're not a scientist, these books can still be extremely valuable. Books that discuss visualization from more a business analytics perspective. Books that can give you ideas. I am a great believer in learning by copying not in the sense of a plagiarizing, obviously, but in the sense of borrowing ideas, of getting inspiration from other people. And these books are wonderful in that sense. So they are books that are not intended to be read cover to cover. They are books intended to be browsed, looking for ideas, looking for inspiration. And then also books about cartography. Because if you really want to work in data visualization, one of the things that are most often overlooked in visualization design programs, in educational programs, is how important it is to teach people to design good maps. So these are three books that really helped me understand maps a little bit better. These are three of my favorite books about visualization, about cartography in visualization. And with that, I'm going to close the presentation today. I hope that you have enjoyed it. And well, just try to pursue a career in this field. It's a lot of fun. I hope that you will. Take care.